Hello everybody! Since you guys like my video where I tell you guys my top 10 favorite my top 10 favorite heroes from the Marvel Comics franchise, I felt like I owe you guys a redo of a video that I did on my original YouTube channel. Now originally I recorded this on my phone, however my phone could only record videos for like a certain amount of time. But since I'm doing it via my computer, I get to do things a little bit, like I get to do videos a bit longer. Today I'm going to give you guys my top 10 favorite heroes from the good old DC Comics franchise. So here we go. Number 10, I think, is a hero that even though he doesn't nearly get as much hate as he did back in the day, part of me still feels he's still a bit disrespected. He still gets that bullshit negative stigma surrounding him because of how he was done in certain aspects in the long-running Super Friends cartoon franchise from the 70s and 80s. And that is Arthur Curry, or Orin, aka Aquaman. I've been a huge fan of this character since I was a kid, watching not only the classic Super Friends cartoons, but even the classic Aquaman cartoons from the 60s. I even grew up a fan of him through the DC animated universe. I really loved how John DiMaggio voiced him in Batman the Brave and the Bold. I loved how Phil LaMarr voiced him in Young Justice as well as in the Injustice video games. And I've been a fan of Aquaman a very long time, but not once did I think he was a shit character. He gets a lot of flack because, one of the main aspects he had in the long-running Super Friends cartoon franchise was that he owned a jet ski, and to a lot of people it was stupid and corny. Which I admit, it was very silly, but to me, Aquaman didn't need a jet ski, because, he's freaking Aquaman. He's one of, if not possibly, the greatest swimmer in all of comic books. According to my read, that's what a lot of people say he is. He's considered by many, if not by most, to be the greatest swimmer in all of comic books. So, there's that. Aquaman, I've never really thought of him as a bad character. I've always thought of him as pretty badass, and I know when I said that, I got laughed at, and kids thought I was fucking stupid. But literally, Aquaman has always been, in my heart, a pretty cool character. I always like the fact that if you look at his most common origin, he is the son of a human lighthouse keeper named Thomas Curry, and an Atlantean queen / princess named Atlana, Atlanna, and making him not only a super Atlantean, but now apparently since the New 52, he has been categorized as a super Atlantean demigod hybrid, which I find to be very interesting. But anyway, Aquaman, considering that he is a human Atlantean hybrid as well as a super Atlantean demigod hybrid being, he is one of the most powerful beings on Earth in the DC universe. I mean, his strength is much greater than that of normal Atlantean. His durability, his speed, his agility, his reflexes, his ability to withstand the deepest trenches of the ocean floors, his ability to survive on land for periods of time, are much, much greater than the normal Atlantean. And he has enhanced senses. He can see things in the dark. He can hear things far away. He even has some degree of a superhuman leaping ability, although I wouldn't say it is Hulk level-ish, but it's pretty impressive. He has vast amounts of energy and heat resistance. Of course, he has his famous marine telepathy, which he can use to communicate with marine life. That sort of thing. What I like about Aquaman is that he is very noble, he is very compassionate, he is very caring, and he recognizes where he comes from. He is the son of a human lighthouse keeper. Not only is he the son of a legendary Atlantean queen of royalty, but he's also part human, and he has come to accept both both sides of his heritage, and is willing to defend both the surface world and the ocean depths equally. And that's what makes Aquaman, in my opinion, a better and more heroic version of Namor the Submariner. Number 9 on my list is Number 9 on my list is John Stewart Green Lantern. Now, I'm a huge fan of this character. I got first introduced to this character through the DC animated universe, in which he was voiced by Phil LaMarr, in which I think we can all agree Phil LaMarr did a great job voicing that character. I love John Stewart. I think he's a badass. I think he's one of the greatest to ever serve as a member of the Green Lantern Corps. I like the fact that he cares about his neighborhood, he cares about his planet, he cares about his Green Lantern Corps. He has the nobility of a soldier, a good soldier. That's what I like about him. Number 8 is probably my favorite Green Lantern of all time, and that is Al Jordan. Now I know some people have Alan Scott as Kyle Rayner as their favorite member of the Green Lantern Corps, which is totally fine. But the Green Lantern I got exposed to the most growing up was Al Jordan. That's mostly through the classic Justice League Green Lantern cartoons from the 60s, as well as the Super Friends cartoons from the 70s and 80s. I really like him. I know he can be very cocky at times, very arrogant at times, but his heart's in the right place. He does have a bit of a Boy Scout attitude, like Superman does to some degree. Um, I really like him. I think he's a really cool character. Next up on the list is the Scarlet Speedster, the Sultan of Swoosh, the fastest man alive, or at least one of the fastest men alive, and that is Bartholomew Barry Henry Allen, aka the Flash. Now, he wasn't the original Flash, that person being Jay Garrick, and while he's not the fastest and the most powerful Flash, that being his nephew, Wally West. To me, Barry Allen is the greatest Flash because he took the Flash mantle and legacy to a whole new level. I mean, he created the Speed Force. He introduced us to reality warp, to reality travel, dimensional travel, time travel, reality alteration. I mean, he did all kinds of crazy shit with his speed. And plus, if it wasn't for him, we would have gotten introduced to one of the greatest villains of all time, Eobard aka Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. That is fucking cool in my book. Number 7. I'm sorry, did I do number 7? Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Number 6 is the world's greatest Amazon herself, Diana of Themyscira, Wonder Woman. I don't really need to explain much about her. She's the epitome of legitimate and female empowerment done right. She has been one of the most well-written, well-developed female characters in comic book and fictional history. She represents legitimate equality for not only the female half of the population, but even for the male half. If you remember, she was brought in to be an ambassador for the Amazons, so that way she can mend the ties between the male half and the female half of the population. Because let's just face it, we have done both men and women have done some really bad things to really hurt the relationship between the male and female half of the population. And Wonder Woman's a strong, she's loving, she's compassionate, she's even though she has killed, she doesn't really like to kill. And she's very loving. She cares about animals, she cares about people, she cares about men, she cares about women, and she even cares about children. She cares about peace, love, and compassion, and most of all, peace. And, to me, I know some people are going to call me a fanboy, but I think she's one of, if not the greatest female hero in all the comics and fiction. Now, some people have their favorites, but I really love Wonder Woman. I think she's a phenomenal character. Number 5 on the list is J'onn J'onzz, the shape-shifting Martian Manhunter. I never heard of this character until I saw him in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited animated series, or to put it simply to the point, the DC animated universe in which he was voiced by Carl Lumbly. Martian Manhunter, I told you about him when I did my video of the 10 characters that I want to see in the James Gunn's DC Cinematic Universe. J'onn J'onzz is one of the most compelling, interesting, and tragic heroes in all of comics and fiction. He's a really cool character. He's a very interesting character. In my opinion, as well as many other people's opinions, he is widely regarded as the heart soul of the Justice League. He's an amalgam of Superman and Batman himself. Excuse me. He's an amalgam of Superman and Batman himself. which to me is both cool and very scary thing if you really think about it from other perspectives. He's a really cool character. Number 4 on the list is Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond. Now, for those of you guys who do not know, similar to that of Harley Quinn, Livewire, she was a Batman Beyond was originally supposed to be an exclusive character to the DC animated universe, but because the character got so popular, they eventually transitioned him into the DC Comics franchise. And I've always loved Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond was one of my favorite animated series growing up as a kid. I love Will Ferrell's voice work of Terry. And if you want to know my thoughts on Terry actually being the biological son of Batman, I'm not gonna lie, that was a pretty cool, interesting plot twist, but how they did it was kind of weird. Like, they inserted his DNA into another man, so when he, I don't know, it was so freaking weird. But I don't hate it. I don't hate the fact that he's Batman's son. How they did it was kind of weird and questionable. You know what I'm saying? But I like Batman Beyond. I think he's one of the best futuristic versions of any superhero, along with Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099. Number 3 on the list is the OG Robin, the man that many people regard as Batman's greatest protege, Richard John Grayson, aka Nightwing. And at one point in time, he did take up the mantle of Batman, which I thought was so freaking cool. I'm a huge fan of Dick Grayson. I think he's one of the greatest proteges, apprentices, one of the greatest heroes of all time. He's one of the most well-written, well-developed characters of all time. He's a really cool fucking character. I've always been a fan of Dick Grayson. I've always been a fan of him ever since I was a kid, watching reruns of the Batman and Robin cartoons from the 60s, the Super Friends cartoons from the 70s and 80s in which he was voiced by Casey Kasem, the 1966 Batman TV series in which he was portrayed by Burt Ward, and of course the DC animated universe. But I really, really do like Dick Grayson a lot. I like how far he has come in his career. I understand. I love this relationship with him and Barbara Gordon, who we all know and love as Oracle in the original Batgirl. And I don't know, I don't know if I don't know if I like his relationship with Starfire more, but I know he came close to marrying her once, if not twice, in the comic books. But he's a really cool character. Really interesting character, in my opinion. Number 2 is the man that trained Dick Grayson, Bruce motherfucking Wayne, aka the Batman. Now, I know this may piss some people off that why isn't he number 1 on my list? I'm sorry. If you're expecting every DC fan to make Batman the number 1 favorite hero, you're in another world. What can I say? Batman is, even though I do think he has been overrated and overrated by a lot of fans and writers, he is still a tremendous character. I mean, he is the definition of a dark, tragic character. I mean, this is the story of a man who's been traumatized after witnessing the murder of his parents. This is a man that mentally has not been the same since he was a kid. This is the story of a man who tries to strike fear into the hearts of criminals. This is the story of a man that trained his body and mind to the peak of human perfection. This is the story about a man who was willing to use his wealth and resources to develop gadgets and equipment and vehicles to fight crime. I mean, what more can I say about Batman? He is just, I mean, he's mastered almost every form of hand-to-hand combat / martial arts on the planet, which knows a lot of people, oh, that's unrealistic. No shit, he's supposed to be unrealistic. Shit doesn't have to be realistic to be entertaining. Fucking morons. And number 1 on my list is the man, the myth, the legend himself, the character that a lot of people feel that started it all, not only for DC, but for superheroes in general. And that is the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow, the last son of Krypton, Superman. Now, I've been a fan of Superman since 6 or 7 years old, watching reruns of the Superman Fleischer movie shorts from the 40s and 50s, the Adventures of Superman from 67, the Super Friends cartoons from the 70s and 80s, the DC animated universe in which it was voiced by Tim Daly and George Newbern. I can go on and on. And of course, the first two Christopher Reeve Superman movies. You know, I've been a fan of Superman a very long time, and obviously, make no mistake, I've always loved Superman because of the type of character that he is, the type of person that he is, the type of ideal that he carries and represents. Superman in my eyes is the epitome of what a superhero should be. Kind, compassionate, decent, selfless, sacrificing, optimistic, charismatic, logical, rational, um, always puts the people first, doesn't do it for fame and glory. You know what I'm saying? Like, to a lot of people, he is the greatest superhero of all time, which I may do a video about sometime. But anyways, that is it for today's video. Peace out.